Well, for the second time in Halo's history, the Covenant Carbine finds itself left out of the gameplay sandbox. And while in Halo Reach it was replaced with the needle rifle, in Halo Infinite people are wrongfully assuming it was replaced with the Pulse Carbine. But actually the Covey Carbine was not usurped by the Pulse Carbine, it was displaced by the Commando Rifle. And what's worse is that if you need someone to blame for the removal of the Carbine as we knew it, don't look at 343, turn to your fellow Halo fan. Chances are they asked for it to be removed. I'm the Home Slice, Ascend Purian, and today I want to discuss how the removal of not only the Covey Carbine, but similar weapons like the DMR and Light Rifle are likely the consequence of over a decade's worth of complaints from Halo fans about one key topic: redundancy. Like always, stick around for my viewer question at the end, and let's get this started. Now, if we're going to understand why the Carbine and many other precision weapons weren't given the green light for Halo Infinite, we need to understand a certain debate that's nearly as old as Halo itself. The debate waged by Halo's Sandbox Purists. In the basic sense, a purist is someone who believes Halo's weapon sandbox is defined by the unique roles each weapon has from a combat standpoint. It's Halo's integration of weapon uniqueness that prevents it from having huge weapon pools and inflated weapon categories like its peers of old, COD and Battlefield. Now, a sandbox purist should be fully ready to die on the hill of purity, and will argue that any and all overlap in weapon function must be highly scrutinized. If that overlap exceeds a certain amount, the duplicate weapon is to be removed. When we discussed the new weapon, the Heatwave, we talked briefly about why purists protested the scatter shot so much during its 9-year lifespan. And what's become apparent to me, and probably many others, is that Halo Infinite's weapon sandbox is launching as a complete breakaway from its predecessors. And furthermore, it's launching as a very intentional address to sandbox purists. Infinite so far has trimmed away a lot of the recurrent Halo sandbox that is either only keeping things that are easily adopted for their uniqueness, or is introducing new things to fill new roles. And the reason the Carbine is getting the boot is the simple fact that it's not unique. It has virtually no essential role in the gameplay experience. Oh there, cowboy. Don't start beating on your keyboard just yet. Let me explain. When we take off our rose-tinted glasses and focus on one key word, function, it becomes pretty easy to see that the Covey Carbine, even at its literal inception in Halo 2, is just a very minor deviation of the battle rifle. The weapon that was purposefully crafted by Bungie to be the all-controlling go-to weapon for 2 Halo titles. The deviation exists primarily in the firing mode, which is single fire instead of burst. Some people might argue that the Carbine also fires faster, which makes it more different, and I'd say that's more of a deception than it is a feature. It can fire faster per shot, sure, but it takes 7 to 8 headshots on average between its iterations to produce a kill, nearly twice as many as any given BR. Those are the only major functional differences between the Carbine on the class standard BR. And if I'm arguing from the standpoint of someone who truly believes the entire Halo sandbox should be curated for uniqueness and dedicated function, the Carbine is gonna be on my chopping block. But here's the thing, it's not just the Carbine, it's the DMR and the Light Rifle too. All 3 of these weapons, when given a true tit for tat against the par standard BR, are not insanely unique. The Light Rifle lost its switch fire option from Halo 4, and the DMR is actually just a semi-failed attempt at correcting the precision weapon meta in 2010's Halo Reach. We talked about that a little bit in the past. And in Halo Infinite, 343 is not launching the game with a high consideration for any gun that cannot hold its own as a wholly unique gameplay item. And this is at the request of sandbox purists, who have spent in some cases nearly 17-ish years arguing against redundant sandbox options. And since I hurt a few people's feelings last time I talked about sandbox purists, let me be clear. As a concept, there's nothing wrong with being a sandbox purist, and I'll even contend that it can create a mindset that is focused around making sure each weapon in the game is greatly developed and holds unique impact on the gameplay experience. In the pure sense, sandbox purity is about quality over quantity. Now, the issue is that not every sandbox purist is actually a sandbox purist. Some people use this mentality to target specific weapons they don't like the scattershot or binary rifle, in hopes that it will result in their removal from the game. If you were to compare the binary rifle to the UNSC sniper, in that same stroke you'd have to compare the UNSC sniper to the beam rifle. I think you'll find the differences between the binary and sniper are far greater than the differences between the beam rifle and the sniper. We don't talk about that though. I think what 343 did was called the community's bluff. Since people have been complaining that Halo's weapons have become redundant over the last 9 years, 343 has passed every weapon through the filter for purity. And that didn't just mean reclaimer era weapons, it meant everything. If it was redundant, it was either cut or combined / reworked into something new. The commando rifle is a great example of this, where the speed of the carbine, impact of the light rifle, delivery of the DMR, and even the firing mode of the needle rifle are all achieved in one gun. In this way, 343 can have a singular precision weapon apart from the BR, all while not fully removing the mechanics of the past 4 that go into it. And remember back when I described how the Pulse Carbine is currently one of the most misunderstood weapons in Halo Infinite. I noted how it's actually just the love child of the Storm Rifle and Halo 5's Boltshot, with some added clever quirks in. Another example of guns being reworked into new weapons to maintain their functions. Here's the big takeaway I want every viewer to walk away with today. If you are entering Halo Infinite asking questions like where is this or why did they remove that, not only are you bound to make yourself unhappy, you're just greatly misunderstanding what's happening here. The Halo Infinite weapon sandbox is crafted with emphasis on function and purpose, not just aesthetics and factions. The questions you need to ask are which weapon is doing what, and what weapon is doing that. I think we're going to continue to find that each weapon in this game is some combination or metamorphosis of weapons from Halo's 20-year history. And since I know I'm going to get this comment a couple dozen times probably, 343 does claim that they'll continue to add content to the game over time, eventually bringing a lot of Halo's old weapons and armors or whatever to the sandbox eventually. I consider myself a realist and never bet on any of this, and I'm confident that some things just aren't going to make it to Halo Infinite. So, for today's viewer question, let's get scrupulous. I don't think the Carbine's coming back. What other weapons from Halo's past do you think will never get a chance to return alone? Comment below. That's going to do it for this video. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't, you really need to follow me on Twitter, trust me, and join my Discord linked below. Until next time, I'll catch y'all later.